Welcome back to Tactical Tea Time. Today I'm going to be installing the Super Springs coil springs on my wife's Bronco. Alright, so here's what we're going to be using today. This is the Sumo Coil springs by Super Springs. These go on the coils. Not only do they work on Broncos, but they also work on minivans. If you have an SUV, I've run them on heavy duty trucks. If you have a big ranch hand bumper on the front of a Ram 3500 or Ram 2500, or even if you have a big heavy bumper on the front of a half-ton pickup truck, running Sumo springs on the front of your truck replaces the bump stops, changes everything. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those, I highly recommend them. This is going to go on the rear of this Bronco. This is the one that goes on the front. Most important thing, because I don't get to drive this Bronco, she's afraid I might get it muddy or something. The most important thing is safety. So if she has to swerve on the freeway, traveling at a high rate of speed to miss a deer or a squirrel, she's not going to roll her Bronco. It's going to stay planted on the road. So this is what we have. Let's get started. Here's what we're going to be using today. We're using the Sumo coil springs. This part number, this is for the rear. This is CSS 1168. So this is what we're going to be putting on the rear end of this 2024 Bronco Heritage. This is part number CSS 1094, and this goes on the front of the Bronco, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Tools. Shouldn't need any tools. Besides your jack and your jack stand, maybe a big flathead screwdriver. You may have to get creative as far as tools go, but technically don't really need any tools. First thing we're going to do is we're going to wipe down these springs. Couldn't find any kind of spray bottle with any type of soap solution. That's what I highly recommend. So instead we just put some hot soapy water inside my wife's Tupperware bowl. We won't tell her about this. And by the way, if you bring any towels out here to work on your Bronco, don't bring the beloved towels from the bathroom. I learned that the hard way. One thing to remember when installing the coil Sumo springs is there's going to be two channels. There's going to be a deep channel and a shallow channel. So the deep channel, we're going to spin this around. The deep channel is going to go on the bottom. So shallow channel, deep channel goes on the bottom. Ran into a little bit of trouble trying to get these Sumo springs between the coils on this Heritage. I don't know if they're just not the same springs as the Wild Track, but here's what I can say. If you have a Bronco with a sway bar disconnect the sway bar. I'm sure it'll make things a whole lot easier. So I finally got this thing started. I just had to get a bigger screwdriver. So the whole thing about no tools needed, get you a big screwdriver. You're gonna have to wrestle with it a little bit. Probably would have been easier if I took the tire off. I just like to make things more difficult for myself. Let's get under there and I'll show you where I'm at, and then we'll get this one finished putting on. I know a lot of y'all work on your vehicles with gloves on, but sometimes I can pull it off, sometimes I can't. But this time we're doing it without. So we went ahead and got this started. You can't really see it from this angle. I've got it in the top channel, the bottom channel, and now I'm just going to work this around, popping the top channel in place as I go. Sometimes you got to slide it. And by the way, I recommend taking some Dawn dish soap or whatever you got in the kitchen, lubricating this beforehand. But we're almost there. Try to get this to turn a little bit. I'm going to change positions here and see if I can get under the vehicle. Y'all, before you get under your vehicle, make sure you have your jack stands in place and everything's safe. The last thing you need to do is have an accident, especially when you're the only one at home and your phone's over there somewhere. So we're going to just start to squeeze this last little bit in place. There she is. Ladies and gentlemen, we have liftoff. All right, so we got her in place. I'm going to move this camera here so maybe y'all can see what I'm looking at. So all the way around, and that's about where we want it. We're about halfway up the spring. There she is. We just got the driver's side rear installed. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and drop this side. We're going to start working on the passenger side. I'll be back. All right, so we went ahead and got that installed. Not going to say it was easy. It wasn't super difficult. First of all, I just want to say that I'm not sponsored by Sumo Springs. I'm not paid by them. So here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you. We went ahead and installed the fronts, and I actually pulled the rears off. So I got the one side put on the driver's side rear. For the life of me, either I'm just not strong enough, or I just need to get a Yeti involved, get some different tools, or I'm just doing it wrong. But I was not able to put the rear coil super spring on this Bronco. So this is the Heritage. This has the Haas 2.0. I drive a Wild Track. It has the Haas 3.0. No issues with the 3.0. Works beautifully. And I can tell you from experience that if you have a Wild Track or the Haas 3.0 suspension, if you run these coil super springs on the back and the front, it's an amazing experience off-road and on-road. So you get rid of a lot of vibrations, swaying with the wind, cornering is a whole lot better. I can say nothing but great things about these super springs. What we did do with the Heritage today is we installed the super springs on the front end, took it for a test drive out on freeway speeds, drives beautifully. We had some crosswind, not a lot of body roll with the crosswind. So I think what we're going to do with this one is I'm going to reach out to Super Springs and see if there's a different size that might work better. Either way, just like most car projects, it's only supposed to take an hour or a half hour. We've been here all day. The fronts were beautifully done, easily took 10 minutes, no issues there. Really excited about how that turned out. Ended up pulling the tires off the Bronco on the back end to try to get in there a little bit better. Didn't help. Like I says, either I'm not using the right tools, I'm not strong enough, or I just was doing it all wrong. Thank you all for watching. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. We're going to be doing some other things down the road. I'm going to be doing some firearms reviews. We're going to be doing some outdoors products reviews, some more Bronco reviews of some things I'm putting on Broncos. If there's anything else you guys want reviews on, please reach out and let me know. If you have a Bronco with this suspension on it and you were able to put those coil Sumo springs on there, please make a comment in the comment section and let me know if there was a different size you used. The size that I was using was the CSS 1168 on the back end. Just couldn't make them work. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Welcome back. So a couple days ago, we were installing the Sumo Coil springs on my wife's Bronco Heritage Edition and ran into a bit of trouble. I wanted to talk about that really quick, and then we're going to work on the Bronco and get it finished up today. When we go to the Sumo Springs website and we put in that we're looking for the size of Sumo Spring for a 2024 Bronco, it doesn't list the differences. It doesn't ask you if you're looking for one for a Wild Track or a Badlands or a Heritage. It just lists Bronco. So according to that part finder tool they have on their website, for the 2024 Bronco, it lists that you would need a CSS 1168. We tried to put this on this Bronco. We spent a lot of time on this Bronco, as you all saw in the video. It just does not fit. Went back to their website and tried to figure out what was going on. The problem was there just wasn't enough space between the springs. Even when we lifted the side of the Bronco, there just wasn't enough space between the springs to get that to slide in. Here's what we learned. This number, CSS 1168, means that there is 1.68 inches between the springs. After taking some measurements, I decided to order CSS 1125, which means that there is 1.25 inches between the coils on the springs. So we're going to get those installed today. Should be a super easy install. Typically, when I did the install on the Wild Track, it took less than an hour. I want to say it took about 30 minutes. So I don't think it's going to take very long. We're going to get this set up. We're going to finish up the rear end of this 2024 Bronco Heritage. And then when we're done with that, I'm going to go on to the Sumo Springs website, and I'm going to show you all how to find the part numbers that you need and the sizes so that you can find the right size for your vehicle. Okay, so we got the Bronco lifted up, we got our jack stands in place, and now we're going to be installing the new size that we ended up with. Now we already wiped down the springs and everything from before, so we're going to get this in here. I'm going to set this up to where you can actually see it, hopefully see it from the camera, but that should just slide right into place. And we're going to just push this in with our palm and slide it around. So as you guys can see, that's how it should be. So this is the 1.125 installed, the CSS 1125 installed in the Heritage Edition. This has the Haas 2.0 suspension. If you have the same suspension, it's probably going to be similar. So just keep that in mind, but I also plan on showing you how to take your measurements and pick the right size. At the end of the show, I'll break it all down for you. So we got that side installed, super easy. Can't believe how we battled with it before. We'll get the other side installed. Okay, so this is the passenger side rear. This is the one, so last time we were able to get the 1168 in. We fought it for a few hours and it was a lot of work, but we were able to actually get it to fit. This time the 1125 just slid right in. So this is the true test. Can we get the new Sumo spring to fit this side? This is the one that gave us trouble. So we get this thing lifted and we're ready to go ahead and get the install done. This one's going to be a little different because the springs are facing opposite. But we did get it fit. After battling this thing for hours and hours, we were able to get this to work by changing out the sides to a CSS 1125. It was still a bit tight, but that's what we want. So now that it's in place, we can go ahead and drop the rear end of this and take it for a test drive. Okay, we went ahead and got the rear end Sumo springs installed. It's not supposed to be as difficult as I made it with the other springs. Let me show you something real quick while I've got you here. So this is the Coil Springs Coil Gap Tool, and you can print this out off their website, and I'm going to show you guys where to go to get that information. But basically it's set up so that you can print out this sheet and cut out the different sizes, slide them in between the coils, see which size you need, and that will alleviate any of the concerns and problems that I ran into trying to install the CSS 1168s on this Heritage. The Coil Gap Tool allows you to print out the different sizes, and as long as you print it out in full size format on your printer, you can cut them out so you can see what we're working with. So the CSS 1168, this is what we started with. This was the one we tried. First of all, the next size down is the 1145, and then we went ahead and decided that the 1125 was the one that we needed. And we were able to do this just by sliding it between the coils, finding the one that's the best fit with the vehicle unloaded, and going with that size. We'll go on to the Sumo Springs website, and I'll share my screen with you so you can see where to go to find this information. So I'm on the website now. I wanted to show you what that looks like. For the 2024 Bronco, we went to superspringsinternational.com. We put in 2024 Ford Bronco 4x4. When we search the website, it shows the CSS 1094 and also the 1168. It does have the Sumo Springs rear, which are definitely an option if you are towing, and I definitely recommend the blue over the black. The black's going to give you a little bit more carrying capacity, or if you're towing a trailer, quite a bit. The black will definitely help out with that. But I highly recommend the blue. It's going to give you a smoother ride. I've run them both, and I think the blue's definitely the way to go for a weekend warrior or if you're not towing every single day. We were talking about the Sumo springs, the Coil Super Springs. We're looking for the Coil Sumo springs. So right here it says download the printable Coil Gap Tool. We're going to click on that. This gives you a coil gap tool that you can print out. Shows you the different thicknesses that you can choose from. And then it says, with the cutout as flat as possible, slide each size into the gap between the coils until you find the size that fits without being too large. When I did this, I tried the 1125. The 1125 barely fit in there. I decided to use that one, and it snapped right in the way I needed it to work. So that's the one I recommend. You can get them from Sumo Springs direct, or you can go to Amazon and pick them up from there, and I'll have those links in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.